So for installing the hack menu, if you come to the Neopets Discord server and you go under modding releases, you'll have Ella's stuff for the hack menu, the mod. There's two types. There's the PNAC file, which is like a patch file that you use, and there is the .elf file, which this one is for console specifically. I have no idea how to do that. I will link Jackler's like first video in his old any% tutorial where he goes over how to do that. At least I'm pretty sure he does. I don't know. I don't own a free boot card. I never set it up. For this, you're going to open this. It's going to download this PNAC file, which I'm just going to put in my downloads. Oh, Jesus. And I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to click the settings cog in PCSX. I'm going to go to folders, and I'm going to look for this cheats directory, the second one here. If you're on nightly, it's going to look a little different because I'm using the latest, or I guess I'm not using the latest stable. I'm using 2.6.1. It should be roughly the same regardless. If you go to the cheats directory, hit open, that'll bring you right to here. This PNAC file is the same one that I just downloaded. Like, even if I just go put this back in right now, it'll just want me to replace it. So you'll put that in this folder right here. You can close out of this. You'll start the game. I will turn off the display capture now and hope that comes back automatically. Maybe. Yes, okay.
They're a legend.
And what you'll want to do is when you've started the emulator, if you click into it, so I keep it in full screen. If you want it in full screen, you can just double click the screen and it will like full screen it to your whole monitor. Why did it do that? There we go. Hit escape with the emulator screen selected. Hit game properties. Come to this infinity symbol up here. And then enable cheats. There's three options. So you have red, which is off, gray, which I have no idea what it does, and then blue, which is on, definitively on. And then when you turn it on or turn it off, you will have to reset the system. This is so that it actually boots with the changes applied. So I already had it on there, but whatever. From that, when you boot up, it will look the exact same unless you either hit new game, which you'll get a debug menu, or if you hit load game, you'll see that you have multiple pages of saves. And I'll show that in just a second. So if I go to load game, you'll see it says load game, parentheses 01, parentheses. So I can hit either left or right on the stick to go through the pages, and I have pages of saves on this. And I can load any one of these. And this only occurs if you have the hack menu on. If you have the hack menu off, but you made saves on, say, page 1, they will still be there the exact same. If you go to new game, you'll have this menu. This is a debug menu that's built into the game that Ella found a way to enable. So Act 1 puts you at the very beginning Act 1, very beginning Act 2, very beginning Act 3, 4. Act 1 Squire done is you've just turned in your consent papers, so you'll have the Squire sword and the shield and the Squire armor. Chores is, I believe, just before going to bed, before getting called off to Cogum. Act 3 Middle spawns you in Meridell Plains. You have not done Market Town. I don't believe you've done Galert Assassin, and I don't think you've done Jumpy Monster too. That could be slightly wrong. Entering dungeons is everything up until entering the Meridell dungeons, so you've already done Market Town and everything else. And then Act 4 District Done is just directly before you go down and do trials. So for this, I'm loading into Squire Done just so I have a sword and a shield and I don't have to give it to myself. If you hit select, you'll come down here to hack menu. You have a bunch of different options, and it looks like a lot, and it is. load area is this section. So you can modify these right two numbers. And these are in hex. So we have a spreadsheet which will be linked down below. And that spreadsheet, if you go to the map list section of the spreadsheet, there's going to be the fourth column over called index. And that is what you're looking for. That is the number that will load you to the respective map. And there's different types of maps. So you have the red ones are transition maps, which are kind of a weird in-between for certain areas. So like a transition that I know works that we could go to is, I gotta find what its number is. I believe it's this one. The one to abandoned mines should directly load us in, I feel. Yeah. So it puts us here. It doesn't look like it's doing anything, but in the background for those couple seconds, it was actually loading the rest of the mines. And then it puts you in mines. That's all a transition really is. If I go back to 5A, which is Meridel Village, we also have interiors. So an interior is listed on blue in this map. Let me see. Let's just go to the sword store. So 70. So I'll come down here, go to the hack menu, go to 70. It's an interior. That will load Brennan Smithy's place. If I exit this door, I don't know how it works if you load the proper interior for like an exterior place. So like Meridel Village is still loaded outside of this room theoretically. It might put me back to where I was normally, but if you try and load to a different area from inside an interior, you will crash the game. Just straight up. Just letting you know now. Yeah, so it puts me back where I normally would be, which is fine. Other thing is exteriors, which exteriors are things like Meridel Village. If I were to go to 85, that exterior is Meridel Plains. And so forth. And so you don't have to memorize these. There's a lot of them. I just happen to have memorized a lot of them because I've used them. The other function is give item. So most items in the game, I think there's like a few exceptions, like you can't give yourself specific treasure maps as far as I understand. I guess all items have an item ID, but most everything we can give to ourselves here. This goes for things like quest items. This goes for clovers. Removed things like there's some letters in here. Sir not appearing is one. You can give yourself consumables. You can give yourself specifically two that are really nice to have are power potions and Mirka speed potions, which are 55 and 56 respectively. Let's see. You can give yourself moats. You can give yourself weapons and shields and armor. Another good one to know is 126 is the cloak. If you want to know for practicing certain things, 117 is Fiora's rod. 173 is Supernova moat. And what is it? 163. 163 is water moat. Those are really the ones that I would like care about knowing, otherwise you can just look through it. If I select one, I can either increment it up like this, or if I hit left or right respectively, I can increase or decrease the number so long as there's a 0 in that slot. So I'm just going to go ahead and give myself 9,000 power potions. And that number will continue to stay there until I change it. So I'm going to do the same with Mirka speed pots just because I have enough. With the edit Neo points, you set this to the number you want, you cancel out, and you have the number you want. So I'm set at 500 now. If I go in there and I set it to 90,500, I have 90,500. Edit flags, I have no idea what this does. I'm not going to lie to you. There's also not great documentation on the flags for this game, so I wouldn't really worry about this unless you're really delving into things. I'm not the person to ask about that. For options, you have debug mode, which I've actually never messed with. I have no idea what this does. Figure it out if you want to. Suppressed loads will mean that any loads which I'll show off what I mean by like loading areas and zones in a minute. It will stop it from loading. Show coordinates is something I'm actually going to leave on. That's this top right. So you have the red number, which is your X. The Y number is your Y value. And the, I guess medium blue-ish is your Z value. The cyan speed value, SPD, is the speed that Tor or Roberta are moving respectively. So if I pop a speed potion, you're going up to about 17.8. And if I didn't have a speed potion, you saw I was about 9 or so. 9.68, I think it is. We only really need to pay attention to our speed for a certain number of things. Otherwise, just know that, like, if a certain trick requires Miraga speed, I'll try to mention it. Otherwise, it's really just popping it anytime we have it, with a few exceptions that I don't know that'll come up unless you just have really weird potion timings, which happens. We have our GRV value, which is our gravity value in Indigo there, and that has 3 different settings it can be on. So it can be on 1.0, and this will get reset anytime you jump, or certain cutscenes or animations will reset it. Respawning at a save point will reset it. But if I were to... Just gonna go back to Murder Village. If I interrupt a jump attack by not just doing a jump attack, but hitting something, like hitting this wall, it will stick me at 0.3 gravity as Tor, and as Roberta, if you jump and attack just after you stop falling, or just after you start falling from the peak of your jump, so long as you're on level ground, you will get a 0.3 gravity. If you attack right at the very end before she hits the ground, she'll get 0.35 gravity, which I'm going to show that off now, actually. So I'll make this save here just so I can go over here to this state where I know I have Bob. And what I'm going to do is, with the hack menu on, sorry, you'll see that I'm 0.1. As soon as I start falling, I'm going to attack. I have 0.3 gravity. If I wait until the very end and then attack, it's a little bit hard to get. It's quite precise if you're on level rounds. I'll just fall a little bit further, do it like that. I have 0.35. I don't know if we can get 0.35 like that on Tor, but you know how to do it. The other way we can get low gravity is by grabbing a ledge. So there's 2 different ways you can grab a ledge. If you're running into it and the game auto jumps you, like this, you will never, ever get low gravity. Now, if I jump into the ledge myself, either like this or like this, I will have low gravity. And the thing that changes whether you have 0.3 or 0.35 is depending on how long you were falling in the air. So like, if I jump off of this platform and then onto the edge of this other one, I'll have 0.35 because I went just a little bit below the level of where I started, is more or less what it comes out to. Whereas jumping from this ground onto this gives me 0.3. Another thing we do in a couple places is Textbox Jumping. So this NPC here, this if I have 1.0 gravity and I jump and interact with their text box, I'll have 0.3 gravity. And say I close this text box really fast, I still have 0.3 gravity. Depending on the situation, if you were to jump into a text box and text skip it but not hold L2, you will not get low gravity. Tor will go into a free fall animation. It happens in like 2 places I can think of, maybe more, but those are 2 that I can like guarantee it happens. And at least one of them isn't in this run, and I can't think if the other one is right now. So when you have low gravity, you're doing normal jumps, like you're not going any higher or anything. If I jump from here, it's like whatever. But if I have low gravity and I hold L2 and I jump, I go higher. It's kind of hard to tell at first, but let's say I'm lining up my feet with these two rocks here. I do a jump like that. I land with these three small stones right next to each other. If I get low grav and I do the same thing, I took another step, but I go a little bit further. And I also go higher. And the reason that's important is that it allows us to do certain jumps. That's less so the point, right, like in the route now that we've changed some things, but it is important to understand that you can get extra distance off of it. And when you're interacting with somebody's text box, you'll jump into them. Mid-air, you'll open their text box like that, and you'll close it while still in mid-air. Keep holding L2 and R1 and forward to keep running, and that will stack your momentum as long as you close the text box while you're mid-air. As soon as you hit the ground, you'll start losing speed, so right after you hit the ground, you're going to aim to jump. What that's going to do is that's going to do a little bit of momentum preservation, and you're going to slide forward. This is most effective when you have no Miracle Speed Potion. There's one scenario where you can do it with Miracle Speed Potion and it's worth, and it's if you already need low grav anyway, you might as well take that tiny bit of time in the air, which is a set speed until you've done this momentum preservation, before doing anything else. So if I jump into this guy, do what I described, and then jump like that, you'll see my speed went up to 17.47. Almost the same amount that a Miracle Speed Potion does. And it really depends on how fast you jump once you hit the ground. You'll see I peaked there at like 18.864 I saw that time, and then I jumped. It's really dependent on how many frames you're on the ground before you jump. So this is a thing we do in a couple places, namely during the Miracle Speed chase here, or the Miracle chase. You'll be running, and then a lot of the time you'll either get Master Grith way over there, the red, or the green, I forget what his species is. He'll spawn, or there will be Sammy, the small blue Tico here that spawns, or the two kids playing tag. And we'll do text box jumps off of them, just to get a little bit of extra speed. It saves, I don't know, maybe half a second each time or something. And the other place is doing it right here on either Vonkar or the sign from Angus's shop. That one's a little less impactful on the run, but regardless, it's still something that's good to know. The Y velocity, we don't use a whole ton, but that is, if it's positive, you're going up. If it's negative, you're falling down. And that's really the only thing. The other things you really want to be comfortable with for this run are spinning. Doing spins on command. It's one full rotation and then attack. I know it sounds stupid to explain that. If you attack too soon, there's a risk you won't get the spin. Tor's pretty lenient with it. And if you do your spin too fast, there's a risk that it won't register it at first. So doing a wider spin than you think you have to will help for you to get the feeling of it. To show off what I was talking before with canceling your downwards velocity, if I, say, jump over here, and I'm going to walk off this ledge and I'm going to start spinning. See how I'm not falling while I'm in the active spin animation? That's what we're going to use for a couple places. Another thing here, if you're on a ladder, you can hold forward and do a jump slash as Tor. This one's kind of hard to do it on. I'll show it better at Kogum. But depending on when you do the jump slash, you can get a ladder that's higher. It's not super impactful for that ladder, which thank God we don't do it anyway here. But Kogum's ladder, we can do it and go from the bottom to the very, very top and skip climbing most of the rungs and not have to jump multiple times there. That's a slight improvement. There are seams, like you just saw me get hit by an invisible wall there. There are seams that you can't spin through while you're mid-air, otherwise you'll just bonk it and nothing will happen, you'll fall. There is like one place where that could be problematic that I'll point out, but otherwise that shouldn't be a problem if you're trying to route things. It's just something to keep in mind is like, can we get around this if we were to just L2 through this while we're mid-air? Can we get around it? Whatever. The next thing in options is alignments, so literally it will show you the alignments of the enemies that are around you. I don't know why I went that way. So this is easiest to show here because the Crocobecs have the air alignment. And if something doesn't have an alignment, so for example, any bosses don't have alignments, then there will be no alignment shown. That sounds insane, but the game, even though it tells you, say, Narfus is fire aligned, does not have alignments for any of the bosses. So for any boss, regardless of anything, you're going to want to be using either your Supernova or your Nova mode. Non-negotiable. That's just the whole thing. For enemies, we don't do a whole lot of like miscellaneous fighting, but say the Dark Knights outside of Market Town that we have to kill. I'll get to this later, of course, but we'll freeze them so we can get the stealth damage effect, which is a thing in this game. It is minor, but it does exist. And then light mode. And the light mode will do more damage than using a regular Nova, but not a Supernova. The problem is that we have pretty limited Supernova we can use in the route. Even if we didn't, say we got extra for some reason, or like the first night dropped it, we could use it on the second, it still ends up being slower because we have to wait for the animation of doing the charge attack to end before we go to the Supernova. Otherwise, it'll restart with the Supernova's charge attack animation, and then we'll end up being slower. So if I take, say, Bubble here, and then I do... I'll just do the Fog Mode one. So I'll do the charge and I'll swap to it. Most of these inner ring ones are just slashes for their charge attacks. But if I have water... Oops. And Supernova, I'll charge the water, and then I'll go into the Supernova animation, and I can't do anything for the entirety of that animation. So that's a reason you want to be doing light for that. But also, if you're ever doing something where you're changing to a different mode, really make sure that you're watching your timing on that, otherwise you're going to restart the animation. The exception being something like light mode, which we actually do use. If I'm charging water and I go into light mode, because the animation is just a swing, we don't lose pretty much any time. Let's see. So the other thing is the zone map. So I'll go back to Marital Plains for this. The zone map is a bit confusing. So I'm going to load zone map. It's going to show up with some name at the top. A lot of the time it'll say food shoot, which is an unused map. But we have this green splotch and all these lines. If you hit square on your controller, it will zoom out, and if you hit circle, it will zoom in. If you hit triangle or start design, or select. So triangle or select, it will close the zone map. Just something to note. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. There's all these lines and all this green stuff, and then that red collision in the very top. So what these lines do is they're actually loading different... one second. If I can read it correctly, that'd be wonderful. They're loading different things. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to step into this red zone, and you'll see the game freezes for a second while it loads. And now this collision in the bottom left has loaded, that red stuff. And these lines are kind of loading zones or like overarching areas. And this helps load certain collision for us to interact with. Whereas the green collision typically means that it's loaded. The red collision, if we step on it, will load another area. So see how all the lines went away? But I'm standing on this red collision and it's loaded more down this way. And that's because it's loaded... I believe this is part of Draken Ridge and a little bit of like the far side of Meridel from us. Whereas if I close this, so it recenters back on where Tor is now. If I keep going along this path, I'll cross from this yellow square into this red square. In just a second, it'll load Meridel. There you go. The zone map is very confusing to learn how to use. Once you understand it, it's not terrible, but it's still a little confusing at times. Like, there are certain colors that indicate that they are water that you'll drown in. So, like, this over here is darker, so when I drop into this, I'll drown. Also, because I stepped over from the red onto the green, it loaded a new area. There's a lot of things to do with this. This is kind of confusing to use, but if you mess around with it, you can learn some things. It is very complicated, very helpful. I'll use it at a few points in the run to show some certain things and demonstrate what I'm looking at and doing that I can't visually show you in the run. The last thing is the save game function, which is exactly what it sounds. You can save literally anywhere, and it will make a save in that location. And you have up to 99 pages of saves. So if I wanted to save right here, at the drown spot of American Plains, I could. I'll walk over here. I don't know why I went that direction. And I'll load the game. And it will put me in that exact spot. Good stuff. Great for making practice saves, especially if you're on console and you don't have save states. If you are on emulator, highly, 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 highly recommend using save states. So you can either do it manually where you go into like the file bar at the very top, or if you have the emulator selected, you can hit F2 to pull up this menu. F2 will cycle through these 10 slots. Shift F2 will go backwards through them. And then F1 will save that to that slot that you have selected, and you can just do it from here. Like I can just sit here and save like this. F3 will load that slot. So if I wanted to quick go to my Narfis load, I know that it's slot 4, hit F3, and I'm in Narfis. So that's just something to get used to using. I have my state set up in a certain way where like state 1 is a free state that I use for whatever. State 2 is before a certain wrong warp. State 3 is before a certain wrong warp. Narfis, fence clip in Act 2, bridge launch for any percent, fast mines, lava movement, starlight gauntlet used for any percent, yes cloak, the trial skip because I do a specific spin jump at the end, and then a wrong warp in planes. So like, set them up how you like, but I would highly recommend using them, especially for practice. Give me 1 second. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. With most of that done, which is a lot, I know. I was expecting this to take like 6 hours, given that the NA percents took 3 hours and they're half the length of the run, but we'll see. I'm gonna load in to 95. I think it was 95 that I wanted. Yes. Ooh, let me actually... So, certain areas, this one in particular, will keep some of the collision of the previous area you were in loaded. So let me do that. And see if the farm is good enough. Yes, it is. That's far enough way off over there. Okay. So there's kind of a lot to go through. I'm going to give myself the Cloak of Heroes. So 126. And I'm going to start just going through a lot of different movement tech we do. So obviously you can jump into certain things to break them. That happens in like one case for like an RNG box to see if we can get money. But a lot of the stuff that you're going to want to get used to is cloak tech and like just pure movement. If you're not comfortable with your movement, it will come with time. But if there's something in particular you're struggling with, really just like hard focus on it. Like do runs where you're just not resetting, like no reset runs, just completely run it, focus on nothing, don't care about the time, just focus on getting that one specific thing down. The two biggest ones. One, you have Miracle Speed Potion. If you're moving toward with the left stick, it is far harder to control than using the right stick to turn because it is a consistent speed, no matter if you have speed or not. And using the right stick to move is probably one of the most common things that I do. And I'll explain, like, there's also the factor of strafe turning. So, if you're strafe running and you run forward without Holding R1, by the way, you're doing significantly less speed. If I'm holding R1, you're going full Mirka speed, you're going straight. If you're holding back, you're going at a walking Mirka speed. Back, to the side, diagonal, whatever. Diagonal is technically a little weird, but... So, when you're walking in a direction that isn't... If you're strafe walking, try to be walking forward. Unless there's certain reasons you can't walk forward. Now, when we're strafe walking, if I were to try and turn the camera with Tor running forward, he's just going to lock in place and start turning like this, right? And if I turn diagonal, I can kind of do this with him still moving, but the problem is that I'm locked at that walking Mirka speed, since I'm not going straight forward, even though I'm holding R1. The way we can get around this is in between this diagonal and straight, there's a tiny window. It is much, much tighter on console, I will say. There's a tiny window where you can see my speed is diagonal here, and Tor looks like he's running forward, but if you pay really close attention to the ground, I'm moving forward here, definitely diagonal, and I have forward run, but I'm walking diagonally. There is a corner in both forward left and forward right, where you can move both Tor and Roberta slightly to the sides while getting the forward speed. And that might seem completely useless, except for the fact that since we're running to a side, we don't get stopped by camera movement. So I'm getting full Mirka speed movement while holding L2, which stops us from dropping off ledges, and I'll explain that in a second. And I can turn the camera, so I can do precise movement while doing this. This is by far one of the most useful things you can learn to do and get comfortable with. Because this can stop you from getting auto jumps on bad collision. This can stop you from losing your low gravity in certain situations, which I can go over that as well. This is just nice for a precise movement scenario. If you ever need to like ever so slightly adjust your position, like go slightly to the right, I'll go like that. Or say I'm running at this same little green thing and I'm like, oh no, I'm like ever so slightly gonna hit it. I can just go to the left. If I turned there, I would have missed it, but you can just do tiny things like that. It does take some time to get used to, and just being able to like go straight to these positions is kind of hard for a little bit. Practice it. It will take time. You will lose time trying to learn it, but it will save you time in the long run once you are comfortable with it. The other thing is what I mentioned before with losing low gravity. So if I get low gravity here, and I walk off this ledge, Tor may or may not auto jump since I have a speed potion. If the ledge has like, you can ledge grab it, he should try and jump if he doesn't have speed potion. Speed potion kind of messes with things. If I run off, he's going to jump, I'm going to lose my low gravity. To prevent this over certain things, including bad collision where there's just a seam in the world and he jumps for no reason, if you hold L2 and go off a ledge, you'll kind of float down because you have lower gravity, and you will not lose your low gravity. Similarly, if you have high gravity and you're, say, trying to void in the Meridon moat, if I run forward with 1.0 gravity and hold L2, I will plummet instead of walking off and going this long distance like I would before. Trying to see if I can get up there easily, but it doesn't look like it. I can do it on this one, actually. So again, long fall versus having high gravity and hitting the ground almost immediately. That's something to keep in mind for certain scenarios, but that's a reason L2 movement is so important. The first piece of cloak tech that is important for this run is Ledgeflies. I know, Ledgeflies suck. For those of us that have done Ledgeflies, you know they can be extremely confusing. To go through the basic idea, get onto one of these blocks here and just walk off the edge. Just slowly push the stick forward until Tor walks off the edge, and he'll grab it. And then after he grabs it, you'll just hit up so he turns on, and then you'll go with the camera facing him and hit L2 to face him backwards. so facing away from the camera. You're facing off the ledge at this point. If I go in and put on the cloak, depending on a number of variables, including your gravity, how far you are from the ledge, the specific angle of the ledge, the way you're facing in respect to the ledge, the direction you hold on the stick. Technically, there's 2 frames where you can get a different outcome during the actual process of doing the ledge fly that'll change it. A lot of factors. If you have speed post or not, if you're rolling L2 or not, there's a lot of different things that can go. You'll need a ledge fly. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stand on the very edge here. I'm going to hit circle or R2, whichever you prefer, to unequip the cloak manually without going into the menu. And then while the screen is fading white, I'm going to hold down on the stick. And then as soon as the screen goes full white, I'm going to hit X. It should look like this. And now Tor is in this weird holding the ledge state while he's flying through the air. So that is a ledge fly. Anytime you're doing that, like flying through the air, holding the sword or whatever thing, that's a ledge fly. Same with Roberta, she's holding her wand like that, but regardless, we do less as Roberta, I believe. Ledge flies are very complicated, as I was saying. So I have 1.0 gravity. If I am turning Tor straight around, right, just like I was before, and I jab at this wall, if I were to do a ledge fly the same way now, I'm further offset from the wall. I will go downwards. Again, that comes down to the how close am I to the ledge? Why is this working the way this is? Blah, blah, blah. If I don't jab away from the ledge, and instead I turn, say, about 45 degrees, so I'm on the very edge, I'm still going to get a downwards angle, though slightly less. And depending on how harsh your angle downwards is, it will change what angle you get specifically. So now I'm on this one. If I go really aggressive to the side, I'm going to get a pretty harsh downwards angle. And this is both good and bad, but it's scenario dependent. Another thing to note, if I have low grav, that also changes things. So I have low grav, I walk off the ledge here, I do a ledge fly, oops, walk back off, there we go, do a ledge fly. Nothing will be particularly different. I believe having low grav and doing a straight angle ledge fly, which is what that is called, will give you slightly less downwards velocity. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe that's not the case. I don't know. The other thing we can do is, I'm actually going to make a state here just so I don't have to reload this, is that if I get low gravity, so we've already done downwards by poking out from the wall and then doing a ledge fly. If I have low gravity of any sort, I poke away from the wall, and then I hold L2, and instead of holding down on the stick, if I hold up on the stick, I can go upwards. We use this in a couple places. The one that I can really think of right now is Illisan's Glade. We usually get up to Narfus faster. If you do not have a speed potion, for certain ones you can hold L2 and you'll do that. That one is more of a straight angle based on where I was positioned. That one's about the same as I got before. There's a number of positions you can be in. Most commonly, if you're going for an upwards angle ledge fly, you're just going to stab away from the wall. You can turn a little bit, and then you'll do that. Sometimes if you turn too aggressively with the upwards angle, you'll be too far away from the ledge to get a proper ledge fly off of it. There you go. The timing is not super tight, but there is a timing to it. And really, all it really comes down to is I'm on the ledge. I am going to unequip, hold down after I unequip to avoid moving Tor. If I'm going to the sides, we'll get something called a displacement if you do it in a certain way. And I'll go through that in a second as well. And then while the screen is going full white, then you're going to hit X now. That's great. It takes a little bit to get the hang of. all the cloak tech is fairly weird. What I mentioned before with the displacement, let's see if I can do it, is... So I went from going at a straight angle here to getting a sideways, slightly downwards angle. If I were to have low grav and do that, which I don't believe I do this in this run, I don't believe I do an upwards displacement anywhere in the run, then you can get a diagonal upwards. But if you were paying really, really close attention, Ledgeflies take away your low gravity. That one didn't. So I'll show it again. So I need to get on top of this. So I have low grav. I'm going to go right off to the edge. If I don't jump off of it, that would be wonderful. Go right off to the edge of this. And I'll just make a state just like this. I'll do my Ledgefly and I'll have 1.0 gravity. That is an expected behavior. But if I'm doing the displacement Ledgefly, so I have low gravity, I do the upwards displacement, and I maintain 0.3 gravity. The reason this happens is because the game is registering you doing another piece of cloak tech. I guess it happens with any upwards, but the game is registering you doing a specific cloak tech called a Cloak Dash that I'm going to go over next. And it starts the Cloak Dash, but midway through the animation, you get close enough to the ledge that the game is like, oh, hey, we should Ledgefly here. And so it starts the Ledgefly. And because of the angle you're pointing, you're going to go upwards. I don't believe downwards. Oh, downwards can also do it. So a thing that's also important to note is if you're doing upwards Ledgeflies with low grav, if I do the tech right, that would be awesome. You see I'm going at 7.79 upwards, whereas if I do, and I was also going pretty straight, if I do downwards on the stick, I'll go slightly to the side and have 7.47. So the angle you're holding on the stick definitely matters. I don't believe diagonal does anything strange. If you don't, oh, I guess it does. I've never really messed with Ledgeflies a whole lot, but there's a lot of factors. Let's say I have a speed potion going, and I try to do the same thing with holding L2 and R1. Instead, if I do this right, a lot of the times, and it does depend on scenario, you'll get a Cloak Dash instead. So it really depends. For that situation, because I had a speed potion and I was holding R1, I did not get the Ledgefly. Whereas if I do the same thing and I don't hold R1, I will get the upwards Ledgefly. It's very confusing. I know. There is so much that you could potentially go into with Ledgeflies that is just way overwhelming, even beyond what we know, probably. That is, if you want to mess around with Ledgeflies, the best thing you can probably do is just try random things. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Ledgeflies are very complicated. Don't feel bad if you're struggling. The second one I'm going to go over is Cloak Dashing. And Cloak Dashing will look like this. What Cloak Dashing is similar to the Textbox jump we did earlier. You can do the same momentum preservation by unequipping the cloak and then jumping at the end of it. Or jumping during the unequip animation, so that your momentum will stack. So you'll have the initial, like, oh, Tor starts stepping forward as the cloak is unequipping. And that'll give him the 17.87, I think it is, move speed. And then once the cloak is unequipped and you've jumped, you're jumping up to like 26, 27 speed. And the way we're doing that is you do not need a speed potion active phase, but it is most effective with a speed potion. You're going to have the cloak on, you're going to hold L2 and R1. L2 is incredibly important. R1, for all the cloak dashes we do in the run, is important, though technically you can do it without if you really want a short distance. You're going to unequip the cloak, you're going to hold forward, and then you're going to hit X when the screen goes white, as if you're doing a ledge fly, but you're going to want to not be near a ledge when you do this. I'm going to do it without speed real quick, just to show. So as soon as I hit the ground, I let go. I'm about here. If I pop the speed potion and do it again, that length from about that lighter splotch right here. So it's a decent length. So again, going over it, you have a speed potion going, with L2 and R1, unequip the clip with circle or R2, whichever's more comfortable, hold forward on the stick, and then hit X. That is 99% of the cloak dash is ready. And if you notice, we still maintain low gravity with this. Like I was saying with the Ledgefly, how it starts a cloak dash and then goes into the Ledgefly because of your distance to the ledge. That's what's happening here. You can do cloak dashes to angles, but it's very situational as to whether or not we'll do it. I can't think of a scenario where we want to do it. Backwards will give you a tiny boost of speed, but it's not really going to do anything for you. I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you're not holding R1, for example, or sorry, L2, for example, you're not going to get any height off of it. A lot of the benefit of this comes from getting that extra height with having low grav and doing that jump out of the cloak. If I don't hold R1, but I have a potion, I'll go somewhere, but not very fast and not very far. Cloak dashing is not terribly hard. It does take a little bit of coordination to like get a feel for your fingers and like doing it right, and not so much the timing once you've done it a couple times, but it's not terrible. And the fact that it maintains your low gravity means that we can chain it with other tricks, or a thing that we don't have integrated into the run yet, and we don't know if there's a place for it yet, is cloak dash chaining. So the idea of this is I'm going to have the cloak on, I'm going to do a cloak dash, and before I hit the ground, like right before Tor hits the ground, I'm going to unequip the cloak midair. So I'll have put it on back in midair, unequip the cloak in midair, and then do another cloak dash input, and that will stack my speed. There I was a little late. And the closer you are to the ground, the more speed you're maintaining. You can see I'm up to 40 speed, 41, 44. And you can just continue doing that infinitely, and your speed will continue to stack. I'm not very good at cloak dash chaining. Jaxler is very good at it. Deesh is pretty good at it. I don't have a whole lot of experience with it. So it's not something we have in the run yet. We might integrate it later, but that's a pretty hard thing to continuously chain back in. The last tech for cloak tech that I'm going to go through is, I guess that we have, is doing mega jumps. So imagine you're doing a cloak dash. You have the R2 and the L2 and the R1 forward. You unequip the cloak and you hit X. The same time you're hitting X, so when the screen is going white, you're going to hit select. So it should look like this. And in my, like, the way I'm thinking about it and physically doing it is I'm hitting select and X at literally the same time. That is all that I'm thinking about. And if you listened, Tor had the noise of him jumping, and you can see he's a little bit elongated from when he would normally be standing on the ground. This means that you've gotten the first part of it. The next part of this is you're going to keep holding L2 and R1 and forward on the stick. You're going to hit triangle to close out of this menu and start spamming the X button. And so you're going to get a huge jump. You're basically stacking the upwards velocity of doing a jump, of doing a low gravity jump twice. And again, the way I'm holding my controller for me is I have L2, R1. I have my thumb hovered over circle first, this thumb over the stick, and I use my left index resting on the select button. And so it's a little awkward for me to do like this, but I'll try my best. is I'll do, if I have the cloak on, that'd be awesome. Like that. It doesn't have to be super exaggerated. The biggest thing to note, your pause timing does matter, and there's technically a way you can do a bufferless bufferless mega jump, but it is incredibly difficult to do properly. A lot of the time, if you're doing it, you'll get what we call an extended cloak dash, where if you were to cloak dash and then jump midair, you can extend your speed, or if I were to get low grab again, you can do the same thing and do this, wait until you hit the ground and do another jump, which does lose you some speed, but if you need to get over certain gaps, you can do it. That's more or less what you're going to do a lot of the time. That's the closest you're probably going to get to a proper height mega jump doing it bufferless. It's very hard to do. It's kind of inconsistent to do. Neil did find that if you're super good at the game, you can do a jump slash out of the very top of a mega jump. I haven't personally been able to get it, but it is a thing you can do. We don't have anywhere we used that yet in the run. That's not to say we won't, but for the time being, mega jumps are probably the one that people say is the weirdest to learn from what I've heard, and like getting the timing of the pause down takes a little bit. It will come with time. It is just a lot of practice for this. And you don't need to do the inputs fast or anything. So long as you're getting the pause and the jump at the same time, that is the only thing that matters. You can take your time sitting here and getting ready, and as long as you spam that X button as soon as you close that, you're going to be good. Another thing is what I just did there without thinking about it is there's two types of L2 jumps. So we mentioned before that if you're jumping with L2, you get a higher jump than if you just jump normally. So see, like, even though I was on the higher block, I didn't make it to the lower one with just a normal jump. I did that time, and I'm jumping just the very, very end of my distance. Whereas if I have an L2 jump, I can make that easily. I jumped early, and I made it. You can also, it's easier to do with low grav, this next thing. If you run off a ledge, so long as you're holding L2, you can maintain your low grav and then jump mid-air so long as you're holding L2. And that can be used for certain things to get like a late jump like that. The hardest version that I don't think we use on the run right now, but there's always ways you can implement it, is that if you drop off a ledge with L2 and R1 held, at least you don't need R1, but L2 held, and you let go of L2, in just a couple frames after you're hitting X to jump, you can get what I refer to as an delayed unbuffered L2 drop. You can buffer it. I do not understand how to buffer it. I know Deesh at least used to buffer them, but it should look like that. So you can see that I got the full height jump of Tor doing a regular jump. This isn't used anymore, as I said, at least as of right now, but it is something to keep note of. Let's see. I went over spinning before. There is a couple things to go over with that. Spin tech we found recently, which I mentioned before. So if you have low gravity and you go to do a spin, everything's going to work fine. If I can do a spin, that'd be wonderful. Everything's going to be fine. If I were to jump and move forward, you see my speed is locked at 9 speed. That is whether or not I had Mirka speed potion, that's whether or not I'm holding R1, it doesn't matter. If I spin, my speed gets locked at about 7.3-ish. Now if I have low gravity, and I spin, and at the end of the spin, I start spamming jump, I'll go up to 13 speed-ish, depending on the frame you jump afterwards, because of course, your speed is going to decrease the longer you're on the ground. we found this and called it spin launching or splaunching, short. And we can actually use this in a number of situations, one of which is going to be doing abandoned mines movement. So if I make my state here, I'm going to run off of this, and I'm going to spin in the air. We call that coptor, as in helicopter, but cop, T-O-R, capitalized for tor, because it can only be done as tor. Roberta's spin A is much harder to get working, but isn't actually a spin attack, and she keeps falling during the animation. We did recently find out that hers is a reflect, so that's fun to know, but I did that poorly. But I'll spin right after I step off of this, and then I'll jump. If I can time it correctly, that'd be awesome. You see, I went up to 16.5 speed, and I got a pretty good amount of distance. We actually used this to get to Ixie to about 20 seconds faster than using Crystal Warp that we did in the past. And I'll still show the Crystal Warp because it's a fairly fast strat, and it's significantly easier, but there are risks to it with it being the crystal can break just for no reason sometimes. There's a lot of things. Spins like this are a little bit interesting. A thing you'll want to work on that is kind of hard is chaining your spins together. I'm not having a good day with this today, so bear with me. I'm taking myself up to this higher platform real quick, just so I can show off chain spinning. I'm here, and I don't know if I can make it over to this black platform, but let's find out. I'm going to do the spin on the platform. No, I just can't. Not quite. Yeah, if there was ledge grab, you could, but spinning continuously in the air will continue to stall your movement. The big things with chaining spins is you can't start the spin too early during the other animation, and you have to delay your swing just enough for the game to register, okay, you've done a full circular movement, so we can spin you. Or so we can spin you again. It does take a little bit to get down. It's not the super easiest thing to do, but you can do this, and we do a set of couple spins in one place where we do a round. That is easier than doing another movement. Right there, I did a unbuffered L2 drop, where I got that full height jump out of being midair. That is frame perfect. I said before the other one wasn't frame perfect, and that's because I was just barely off the ledge. There's a little bit of leeway the game gives you. If you are fully off a ledge, like I'm way out here, it is literally a frame perfect input for that. So there I got the L2 jump. There I got the L2 jump. It is very hard to get an L2 jump. You see, Tor just falls a lot of the time. This isn't tech that we use super often, if at all anymore, but it is something to note. Let me think. Is there anything else movement-wise? Yes. Block pushing. This happens, I think, only in Act 2. Maybe there's one other place we do it. But if you grab a block, you can push it like normal in any direction, whatever. Side pushing is technically faster. Forward pushing is the slowest. But you can actually cancel the movement. So if I take my stick and I push it up and then to the side, and I speed that up, you can see Tor kind of just jitters there for a second. And the faster I do it, the more I can input movements. We're going to use this in Act 2, but I'm sure there are other places I'm just forgetting we can use it. But you're really just choosing a corner, and you're jittering between up and that specific side, and it's going to repeatedly put in these movements. It is easy to mess it up and accidentally go the wrong direction, but it's not particularly hard. It does take some getting used to if you've never done it before. But that's something just to note, that is going to speed up a little bit of the stuff in Act 2 significantly. One other thing, one last thing that I almost forgot about, is thrust attacking. And this isn't taught to you in the game because it was a cut quest for the Squire training, but if you were to pull back on the stick and then push forward on the stick, wait just a hair, like maybe a quarter to a half a second, and then attack, you'll get a thrust attack, like this. And this doesn't seem like it would be useful, right? Well, you see just there, Tor didn't bounce off the wall when I did it right. We actually used that to skip the old sister's escape sequence at the end of Act 1 to hit the loading trigger to start Act 2. And I'm messing it up a little bit now. It's not super precise to do that, but because Tor is shoving his body into the wall, that's the important part. So that's something to just get comfortable with doing on command. I also do it in like 1 or 2 other places when I don't have a Miracle Speed Potion, but I'm about to void out anyway. So that's just something to note. I think that's all for this. I'm going to go over to 94, which is the debug area with enemies and weapons. So the weapons are all over in that corner over there, but the important part that I want is I'm going to have my jumpies equipped and my water mode equipped. In here, you're going to learn shield canceling. So you got to find the right... Okay. So here's where I like to do it. I like to find these Dark Knights, and what I'm going to do is, it's easiest to do if you freeze them. I'm going to freeze them, and I'm going to do 3-hit combos on them, so timing your attacks. The important part is that when you're sitting here as Tor, if you're holding L1 the whole time, I'm never letting go, I can continuously attack. There's also some unused enemies in there. And because of that, we can actually trick the game into getting a fake hit that isn't happening. So what I'm going to do is we'll be doing our 3-hit combos. I'm just going to stand here. And then at the end, during that 3rd hit, I'm going to start holding L1. And then before letting go of shield, I'm going to hit circle again to attack. And this looks faster than it normally would if I was just doing regular attacks. Aside from the fact that I'm just attacking faster, like optimizing my 3-hit combos. It was hard to see there, but when I freeze this knight, and they don't have to be frozen to do this, but I'm just going to do it because it's easiest to show and learn on. You'll hear and maybe see that there's a 4th hit of damage in there, a 4th tick. That's what we're looking for. I refer to those as Phantom 4s. You can do them as fake 4 hits. It doesn't matter. The point is that you're getting an extra hit of damage without having to do that actual hit. It does take a little bit to get used to, but it's not super hard. So I'm going to freeze them, and I'm going to start doing that same thing. You're hearing like, da 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 da. Those are the hits. Like I said, it does take a little bit to get used to. But it's not super hard to do so long as you've done it like a couple times and you can really feel the timing of it. I'm going to freeze them again, and we're going to do this again. It's really good. You attack too fast with your jazz. I'm hitting both knights there accidentally, but so we use that throughout in the run. I'll try to mention where we're doing it, just like keep it in mind and not just do it out of habit. That one more is just a timing situation more than anything else. Most people I've talked to don't have the most trouble with it. It's not super intuitive at first is the big problem. Celia, by the way, unused character. And yeah, aside from that, this area you can use to just, oops, go in and out and choose to fight certain things if you really want to. Like if you want to get used to fighting the Dark Knights, then you can say freeze them. This is how we'll do it in Market Town entry. Just like that. And it's not... It's something you'll probably have to do a few times to get used to. So, don't feel bad if you're struggling with it. It is kind of hard. Unused Casterless Tentacle. So, there's a number of interesting things in this area if you really want to look around. And here is Drake and Black Knight. And, I don't know. You can play around this area. This area also lets you just go walk over here and grab any weapon, any shield. The left side is Tor's swords, the middle is his shields, and the right is Roberta's wands. Fiora's rod is missing, which is interesting. I've never noticed before. It should be right here. Okay. So yeah, this area is mostly for messing with combat. You can use it to learn the Phantom 4s, the 4-hit combos. Aside from that, make sure you're comfortable with the timing of that. Combat's not terribly hard so long as you know when to block, which I'll kind of go through for certain things. There's a few other techs that we'll go through as we get to them as combat-wise. One of which being the targeting reticle for Roberta, but again, we'll get there. So, I'm actually going to quit to the main menu now, and I'm going to start doing the run. That was a lot, I know.
There are legends that dwell within the hidden places of Neopia.
Let me actually make one note. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. So, we're going to start the run. And time will start as soon as you hit new game. Since I have the hack menu, I'll theoretically would start it when I hit Act 1 start. Hack menu is not valid for runs, of course, but just a thing to note. We have the two cutscenes here. We're just going to spam X through, and then we have two text boxes through Lucy. We're going to spam square through. A note, since I forgot to say it later, and I will bring this up again multiple times. Spamming, make sure you're taking care of your hands. I'm actually going to make a quick scene and show off what I do here. So, for my webcam. So, spamming when it comes to, like, spamming a button on the controller, you are going to ruin your hands if you sit here doing this, right? That is going to destroy your hands, especially, like, put you at risk for carpal tunnel, because you're just spamming here, and this tendon is just getting worked to death. Certain scenarios, you can see people doing this, which is fine. The way I like to go about it is crotch cam, by the way. Is that I will, a lot of the times it will depend. So if I'm doing my Ulfric dupes per se, or if I'm doing Ulfric dupes, which we'll get to, of course, I like to do the first one just like, oh, you know, start the dupes, move this thumb over here, and then do that, where I will sit my controller physically on my chair, hold X with my left index, and then square. I'll do the rhythm that I like to do to get through the text boxes. And that's one thing you do. That's the only area where I do spamming like this. The other one is almost any set of text boxes that we have to spam through, or say buying our potions, I will take the controller and I have this, like the balls of my hand. I'll place that on the back side of the controller here, like right here. I'll place it like that so my hand can pivot. And I like to stretch my left thumb over over top of square. If you need to extend your fingers more like this or so, it's fine. But extend my left hand so my thumb is over square, and then my right thumb is sitting right here over square. And I will basically leave my left hand still. I can lock my arm into my hip or my side or my leg, whatever is most comfortable at the time, if you want to do that, to give it more stability. But then I will use my right hand, this one, and physically move from both my wrist and my elbow, not my shoulder. I don't usually do my shoulder unless I have like get really really tired, and I'm physically moving the controller up. So when I'm going down, I'm physically moving this thumb ever so slightly down. A lot of it is just I'm letting my thumb go loose, and the like movement of me moving my hand like this because it's kind of rocking this hand will just naturally like that will turn my thumb into the square button. And because I'm doing it with speed, I'll have enough not momentum. I'll have enough velocity going into it that I will hit square incidentally. And that's what you want. And then when you're coming up on the controller, this thumb, your left thumb, is going to hit square. And you're going to move your right thumb slightly out of the way, which isn't a whole lot of actual movement on your end. So on a very small scale, it looks like this. And if I slow it down, I'm really going like this, right? And so if I speed this up ever so slowly, you can go faster and faster and faster. And it takes a lot of energy at first, but pretty much all of the energy is coming from my forearm and my elbow. Like my wrist does not feel much of anything aside from just keeping my thumb in place. And my left hand isn't really doing anything other than like maybe I'll feel a little bit of like tingliness and like here because I'm putting so much pressure into it from like just almost squeezing the controller between my hand. But if I'm getting that, I usually need to just relax a little bit so that I can properly like do this. Tensing your hands and your arms is going to kill you. Like it's just going to do so much damage to you. The other thing you can do is I usually do this on my leg, but you can bounce this like my right hand on my leg or my chair, either way, to get an extra like artificial rebounds. I used this when I ran Hundo so that I could do the potion buying faster because we're buying like 100 and something potions, or maybe it's not that many. We're buying a lot of potions. Is my point. So that is something to practice and get used to. Spamming is not going away anytime soon, unfortunately, but it will ruin your hands. I'm doing that both for those first two cutscenes. I'm doing it with X, so, and then I'm doing it with square for the two Lucy boxes. I guess the one Lucy text box and the tutorial text box, but regardless, just like that. It does take time to get fast, and I'm not even particularly fast. If you do want to like see how you're doing and like kind of track they take this down. No, they might have taken this website down. There used to be a website. Works anymore. Yeah. I was gonna say there used to be a website that was called Shmup Speed, I think it was, where you could go in, it would detect your controller, and you can go in and spam like that. And I was gonna show that, but doesn't look like that's the case. And you could test like how fast are you going over a 10-second period. Can you sustain it for longer? If you can sustain it, how fast can you sustain it on average? Um, Yeah. That's kind of unfortunate. Oh well. Um, you could always end up if you're using a DS4 controller, a DualShock 4. You can use DS for Windows, which is the application that I use to make sure like I can have the controller working and like bind. I bind the PS button in the very center to a button on my keyboard that I use for my split button, so I don't have to go over to my keyboard or buy a pedal to split. I can just be in the middle of a run, hit where I like to split, and just boom, done. Highly recommend, by the way. Um, you can put your square button to something that like any click speed test place would register, and just go spam through that, and it should still work the same.